We sometimes confuse commitment with obligation. Just because something was the right plan 5 years ago doesn't mean we have to keep living it 5 years later. After living on my own for decades, 5 years ago, I moved from California to Central Texas to live with my son and daughter in law. We shared a home and we had a long term plan. They have property about 200 miles away, and they were going to build themselves a home with a mother in law home for me. And I thought that was going to be a great plan. And then 3 years later, we moved to a single wide trailer in the country. It seemed like a great idea. It was closer to his work and it was less expensive. And it gave us an opportunity to have more of a homestead life like we would have out in the country on their property. And at first, I thought it was a great idea, and I adjusted to living in a much smaller place. And I gave it a lot of time, and I gave it a lot of thought. And eventually, I realized that it really wasn't the life that I wanted. And I came to kind of an uncomfortable realization. The initial plan didn't fail, and I wasn't a failure. I had just changed. I was not the same person that I was 5 years ago. And I realized that homesteading wasn't for me. Of course, 5 years later, I'm in my early 70s. And it really caused me to think, why is it that we think we're not allowed to change our minds after we reach a certain age? Well, we don't want to disappoint our family. And I didn't want to disappoint my son and daughter in law because I no longer wanted the lifestyle that they had anticipated. And I didn't want to appear ungrateful. I have really enjoyed spending more time with them. And I don't want people to think that I made a mistake. I told my friends and coworkers in California what I was doing, and I don't want them to think that I've failed because I've changed my mind. And I've invested time and money into the plan over the years. And I think sometimes we think that changing direction means that we have failed. And at our age, shouldn't we be settled? But then I had to ask myself, who says that turning 70 means you have to stop changing? Because of this change of plans and my changing my mind, there are some things that I have come to realize about pivoting. I've learned that a change of direction is not necessarily a failure. I have learned some things by living this life. Some of them are external things, like what ranch life is about, and living in Central Texas, which is quite different from living in Northern California, and other external things like that. But I've also learned some things within myself. For instance, I'm probably not the best roommate material. I do like living on my own. And sometimes I'm prone to giving a little unsolicited advice, and I know that that's not a great thing when you're living with family, and especially when you're the mother in law. So I have definitely learned some things by living this life. Lesson number two is that you don't have to honor an old decision forever. Past me made the best decision that I could with the information that I had at the time. And I remember often thinking this when I was raising my children, and would sometimes make mistakes because parents do. And I would look back and give myself some grace, realizing that I was doing the best that I could with the information that I had at the time. And I think that we also need to give ourselves grace as we get older and make decisions and then maybe change our mind and make a new decision because that's okay and it's not a failure. And another lesson that I've learned is that regardless of how old you are still allowed to want something different, especially if you have spent decades putting everyone else's needs first. And I don't think that I've always done that, but I don't want to feel guilty or selfish for saying, I've changed my mind. I have a new plan. I want to pivot. So maybe the bigger question is there something in your life that you chose 5 or 10 years ago that no longer feels right, but you're afraid you're too old to change it? When I'm considering making a change, I have found it's helpful to ask myself, am I okay if nothing changes in 5 years? And if the answer is sure, then maybe I don't really need to change. Maybe I just need to take a little break or a little vacation. But if the answer is no, this is not going to work for me in 5 years, then I might need to be brave and pivot and do so without feeling guilty or selfish for doing something that I want to do. Maybe the bigger question is there something in your life that you chose 5 or 10 years ago that no longer feels right, but you're afraid you're too old to change it? I would love to hear your perspective. I would love to hear if you've thought about making changes and decided against it because you feel guilty or selfish or afraid, or because it's really not right for you. Just let me know. I'm very interested to hear your perspective. And if you found this topic to be interesting or helpful or thought provoking or all of the above, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe so I can continue having these conversations with you. I'm Jerry. I'm 70 and still becoming, and I hope you are still becoming your best self too, and feeling comfortable making changes and pivoting if you need to. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.